NC State. Obviously, good win on the road versus a quality opponent. Really pleased with the way that our guys responded to a little bit of adversity. That's one thing. Fortunately or unfortunately, we haven't had a lot of adversity throughout the year. And we kind of knew going into that game, playing in that atmosphere, especially early on, that we'd probably face some adversity. And be on the sidelines with the guys. There was no panic. I think that's one strength of Deshaun is he's kind of the same person every play, every game, no matter what's going on. And I felt like our guys stayed confident and went out and executed. Feel like we're playing our best ball offensively at the right time. Really like the consistency, and that's something that we've really talked to our guys about is not kind of being up and down, but really playing at a high level consistently. And I think a lot of that goes into the preparation that our guys are putting in. They've really bought in to our plan throughout the week, starting on Monday, all the way through getting ready on Saturday. So really credit to our guys for that. Deshaun obviously is playing at a high level. He makes a lot of things right for us offensively and is doing a great job. Offensive line continues to play well. Those guys obviously have had success defensively this year. Watching them on video, we knew there was going to be some challenges there, and our guys did a really good job. Wayne Gallman continues to run hard, and he's a difference maker for us this year. It's great to see Zach Brooks come in and make an impact on the game. Great lesson for a lot of our guys. He comes in and makes probably one of the biggest plays of the game, getting on the fumble, and then the very next play, he gets the ball and gets a touchdown. Also love the way that we're able to involve a lot of guys. I think our depth really showed up. We had 12 explosive plays, and we consider explosive play as a pass over 16 or more yards and a run 12 or more yards. We had 12 explosive plays by 8 different players. And I think that just speaks to the depth, the quality of the depth that we have this year, which I think is a really big positive. It allows us to stay fresh throughout a game and also throughout the season, which I think is important as you start to get into these the second half of the year. You just think in the second half alone, Zach Brooks, Deion Kane, Ray McLeod coming off the bench a little bit maybe more fresh than the guys on defense and able to come in and have some big touchdowns. Looking ahead, Florida State, obviously this is one of those games when you get your schedule, you're always trying to figure out when you're playing Florida State. It'll be a big challenge as always. Very athletic across the board at every position. Number 9, Josh Sweat, is a really quick twitch guy, defensive end. He'll be one of the quicker guys we've played coming off the edge, so he'll be a challenge. Jalen Ramsey, number 8, one of the best corners in the country and one of the best that we'll face all year long. But really our message to our guys this week is going to be the same it's been every week. I give Coach Sweeney a lot of credit. He's done a great job of really focusing our players each and every week on, the next game is the biggest game of the year. And so we'll take that same mentality in this week and really just trust our plan that we've had all year long and, our preparation, to stay committed to the way that we've prepared and, go out and execute. End of the day, it comes down to us executing, but right now we're playing at a high level with a lot of confidence, so we'll hope to continue that Saturday. With that, I'll open it up for any questions.
Talking about the explosive plays, with Taj, Sammy, Duke, it looked like a lot of times maybe Taj only had one option. Sean's spreading it around so many options. Is this the best this offense has looked maybe since you've been here, just from a talent standpoint?
Well, I would say that we do have more depth, quality depth, and playmakers at maybe every position, where I think in the past few years we've had some years they were at wide out, a couple years maybe Dwayne Allen, he was our best playmaker at tight end. Some years it's been your running back, but I think, overall at every position across the board, I think it's the most quality depth that we've had. And, I think it makes us a lot more difficult to defend as well. it's nice to have those guys like Sammy and Nuke and those guys, but it's not a lot of question by the defense coordinator where the ball's going in some situations when they know that you have a tendency to throw it to one guy. And so I think the fact that we've been able to spread it out, tight ends, running backs, wideouts, everybody's been involved. And, two parts it takes two things to accomplish that. Number one, you've got to have talent at those positions. And number two, you've got to have a quarterback that knows where to go with the ball and to be able to spread it around a little bit. So I think we're fortunate to have both of those right now. And, I think also, we're practicing really well because we got a lot of guys that know that they got a chance to play. Whereas sometimes you're in situations where you got one or two playmakers. Everybody else just kind of goes through the motions because they know I'm probably not going to get the ball anyway Saturday. They're just going to be given to this guy. But now we got a lot of guys out there practicing, working really hard, and Deshaun's doing a great job of spreading the ball around.
The fact that he's been able to throw 5 touchdown passes to 5 different receivers, hit 8 or 9 different guys during a game, does that speak to his ability to see the field and see things develop and wait until it's best? Because he doesn't seem to have favorites like a lot of guys do.
Yeah, I think that the big thing for a quarterback is you don't want to see him force the ball, and that happens sometimes when maybe you've got that one special playmaker. Sometimes you get to a situation where you want to find him all the time, and some of the throws become forced. But I think Deshaun has a lot of confidence really in all the guys that we put out there, and we're not just playing guys because we want to play a lot of guys. We're playing a lot of guys because we feel like we have that all those guys earn the right to play and that they can help us. And so we look at it as a big positive. So I think Deshaun really has trust. Now we're getting later in the year. He's had a lot of experience with these different guys that are out there, and so he's just going through his reads, and depending on what the defense is giving us, he knows where to go with the ball. And I think obviously Deshaun has a great athletic skill set, but in my opinion, his best quality is how quick he can make great decisions. And I think that's something, as a quarterback that sometimes underrated a little bit because you watch SportsCenter and just see the great runs or big throws. But a guy that consistently compute, what's going on in a split second and get the ball to the right spot. Those guys are very rare, and that's what Deshaun's doing a great job of and has all year.
Your plan is to prepare the same way each week, and Deshaun seems to exemplify that as well as anybody. That being said, does he have a certain flair for the big, nationally televised Notre Dame, Florida State type games?
Yeah, I think that's one thing that we've taken a lot of pride in, Deshaun and really all of those guys in that room, is really not getting caught up in that. And it's very easy to get caught up in it because of the national stage. But, I think Deshaun has played in some big games. I think, even though every time you go out there as a player, you're trying to prove yourself. But to be honest, I think he's got inner confidence, and I think our offense has a inner confidence all among themselves that they really trust our plan and trust that it really is about us. And if we go out and execute, everything else will take care of itself. And, I just don't see Deshaun as a guy that's, is going to put a lot of pressure on him saying, hey, it's a big game, I've got to go out and do this. I think, I go back a few weeks ago. I think it was the week before the Boston College game. Deshaun and Artavis were both asked about their stats. The throwing numbers weren't quite maybe what they'd been in the past or what everybody expected. And, I think both of those guys answered it pretty well and just said, hey, we're just going to take whatever they're giving us. We're going to keep going. And eventually, it all hit. And then that very same week, we threw for over 400 yards. And so I really think that's what our guys have bought into is just to focus on our execution, let everything else happen. We didn't know going into North Carolina State. We didn't know if we were going to throw for 400 or run for 400. We were going to have to see how the game was going, what they were giving us, and kind of take what's there. So, I fully expect Deshaun to prepare and our offense to prepare the same way this week as they have all year long. And that's the one benefit when you really, as coaches and as players, when you really treat each game as the biggest game of the year, then when you get to one of the biggest games of the year, it's not that big of a deal. And it's one thing to have that as kind of coach speak, and it's another thing when your players really prepare that way. And I really believe that our guys, in that offensive room each week have put everything that they have into it, and they've seen the benefits of that. And so I think there'll be a lot of confidence going into this week. And really, myself and Coach Elliott, and our message to the guys offensively is, hey, don't do anything different than we've been doing. Let's don't get distracted or get caught up in all the noise that's going on outside. Let's just stay focused. We've got a great plan of preparation. It's proven itself throughout the season. Let's just stay committed to that, lock in, and go to work. So I think that's what we'll do.
Jeff, last year at Florida State, how much did the coaching staff learn about Deshaun? Was his first real meaningful snaps?
Well, obviously we watched that game today, and Deshaun made a lot of nice plays and good decisions. So I think it's good, for him to have that experience against Florida State. We made a lot of plays in that game. Obviously didn't make enough of them to win the game, but I think he'll have. Like all of our guys, when we watch the video, we're running. They're doing the same things on defense as they did last year. We're doing a lot of the same things on offense, so we're very familiar with them. I think the big message for our guys, if you look at our offense, and especially maybe some of the numbers that our guys in the last 4 or 5 years have put up at Clemson, we've accomplished a lot of records and all those type of things. And so our message to our offense, going back to January is, let's accomplish some things that maybe the other offenses haven't accomplished, and that's winning some of these championships and having being more consistent throughout the year. And so that's really been the focus. But we've got obviously a lot of confidence in Deshaun, and I think he'll be fine.
Jeff, is that message to stay on point? Do you have to remind the guys a little bit more, because this obviously is a big week, Tuesday the rankings come out, and it's Florida State, and it can determine a big part of where you guys head?
Yeah, well, I'll have a lot of those notes written down, but I think once Coach Sweeney gets done with them during the team meeting, I can cross off about half of the notes that I have on that, because he'll do a really good job of doing that. But that's and Coach Sweeney, he told them at the beginning of the year, as we continue to climb, there's going to be more exposure and more noise and more distractions, but we just got to stay focused and stay committed to that. And I just, more than anything, obviously I like where we are athletically at a lot of the positions and the skills and talents and all that, but we've had a lot of that here the last 4 or 5 years. There's just something special about the chemistry, the mental makeup of the guys in that room that really they've done so far up to this point. They've done a great job of staying focused on that week, and that'll be the big message this week. But yeah, I absolutely, with the first polls and all that coming out Tuesday, there'll be a little bit more buzz, but I think we just got to stay committed to what we've been talking about all year long.
Would you be surprised if you were ranked number 1 in that first?
To be honest, with a newborn at home, all I've been doing outside of what I've been doing here at Clemson is when I go home, I really haven't watched a lot of TV, and so it's just one of those years. It's gone by really fast, and really haven't had a lot of time to think about a lot of those things, and that's probably a good thing, because we've been so busy. And I think, to be honest, it's been good for our offense that each week, last week going into that game, North Carolina State was the number 3 defense in the country, and it just seems like every week that we had a big challenge in front of us that took all of our attention. And so I have no idea how it'll all match up. I think the confidence that we have is that we control our own destiny, and if we go out and execute in the remaining games, that we feel very confident that we'll be in the top 4. And outside of that, the rest of it is just, fun stuff to talk about and write articles about, and kind of, if and what happens and all that kind of stuff. But for us, this is a time for us just to keep our head down and keep working, and not really, look up at the big picture quite yet. Still too early.
If it does happen, though, Jeff, tomorrow night, having a 1
Yeah.
next to the name Clemson, I know it's all about the rest of the year.
Yeah.
Would there not be a sort of satisfaction for this program and its history to
Yeah, I mean, I think it'll be something to go, man, hey, that's pretty cool. You know, look at where we are right now. Now, we're not going to be anywhere close if we don't go take care of business Saturday. So, I mean, it's not a deal where we're saying, hey, don't watch TV on Tuesday and don't look at the internet all week. You know, it's one of those things that, hey, okay, all right, that's pretty neat. That's where we are now. Now let's go to work. And, you know, I think that comes with maturity. And I think the fact that we've been, you know, we haven't been up maybe to number one if we get there. But, you know, we've been undefeated twice, I believe, you know, in the last 5 years, kind of this time of year. And so I think as coaches and as players, it's a little bit different when you've kind of been through that. And, you know, and Coach Sweeney's done a good job of reminding our players, you know, I believe 2011 started off 8-0 and then maybe won 2 of the last 6 or something like that. Is that right? Yep. And so, you know, it's neat to see where we are, but ultimately the goals and everything that we have, you know, there's a lot left. And Coach Sweeney's done a good job of really breaking down our goals, and our next goal is to win the division, and you know, get a great opportunity to clinch the division, you know, against the team that really has controlled the division the last 4 or 5 years, and so that's really where, you know, all of our focus is. But you know, I mean, our guys wouldn't be human if they didn't look at that and say, hey, that's pretty neat. That's where we are. And but you know, I don't think we can, you know, look at it and you know, get distracted, and you know, that's not going to help us in our execution on Saturday. So that's the big thing.
Is it almost convenient that with all this hubbub, you have a team in Florida State that you and all the players know have been the team to go through?
Yeah, I think it's probably is better with all of this going on to have a team that our guys, you know, have a lot of respect for. And you know, and again, kind of going back to what have we not accomplished on offense the last 4 or 5 years. You know, we haven't played well enough to beat Florida State, and they're you know, one of our obviously conference rivals, and so that'll be the next challenge for our guys, is kind of getting over that hump and playing well enough to do that. And so I think our guys will be obviously be very excited to play on Saturday.
You mentioned Sweat and Ramsey. Is there anywhere else, any level or any area on their defense that just really jumps out at you?
I mean, to be honest, you don't really see a position of weakness. You know, up front, they've got some big bodies like they normally do inside that are tough to move. DeMarcus Walker's a guy we know very well, recruited since he was in the 10th grade. He's playing well for Florida State. You know, I'm sure they'll get Terrence Smith back, number 24. He's been out for a couple weeks, and it sounds like he'll be back. And Reggie Northrup, number 5 from First Coast. You know, we know those guys well. They're very good players. Really impressed with the freshman, number 3, safety. He's going to be a special player. He's kind of come on the scene last few weeks after some injuries, but he can run. And both corners on the outside are very good players, and it'll be some good matchups. And the good news is we faced some good guys in the secondary, so our guys have you know, had some experience against those. But I mean, I think Ramsey's as good as there is in the country, and I'm sure he'll be a top pick one of these days.
Is there any kind of built-in advantage when they've got so many guys that y'all are familiar with from previous?
Yeah, you know, not really. You know, I think we're familiar with them. They're familiar with us. You know, obviously the same thing we had going down to Miami. Some of our better players are from the state of Florida, so they knew coming to Clemson they were going to have a chance to play Florida State every year, and so it's an exciting game for those guys. But you know, bigger than all of that, you know, we want to win our division and have a chance to go to the ACC championship game. And so in order to do that, you got to go through Florida State, and we're just fortunate they're coming to our place Saturday, and we had that opportunity.
Jeff, 2 years ago, I was going to say 2 years ago, a lot of your older guys were here. And remember, will you guys counsel them against thinking payback or revenge or anything, or will you let them ride with that and just the memory of what happened here a couple years ago?
Yeah, you know, I think speaking offensively, you know, we've got 5 O-linemen. None of them started last year, more or less 2 years ago. And Deshaun wasn't here. He was probably in the stands, you know, at least for the first half. And then, you know, a lot of these young guys, I mean, at receiver, 5 of the 7 are all freshmen or sophomore. And so I think as coaches we remember it. As players, some of them were probably, like I said, watching the game. But I don't think it's something. I'm sure it'll get brought up at some point, but I don't think it's anything that we're going to use as motivation. I think if anything, last year, we felt like we did enough to win the game and just didn't finish it. And we need to learn to finish it against a good team like them. But definitely, I think as coaches, I think we have a longer memory, and I think sometimes it's refreshing for the players. For them, they have a short memory, and they just go out there and play. And sometimes, just like myself last week, going, "Oh no, we got to go play at Raleigh." I've been there several times, and I look out there across the room, and our guys aren't really worried about going to Raleigh because they haven't really been there and experienced the 2011 and those different years. So, these guys have a short memory, and our job is really to put all our focus. Our message all year long has been, it's about us. Now, you can't have that message unless you're good enough. If you're at a place that you're not good enough, it's not really all about you. You've got to have the other team not play as well, and you've got to play your best. But I feel like we're at a point as a program where it's about our execution. And Coach Swinney said that many times. If we execute, there's not many teams that we play, that are going to beat us if we execute at a high level. And I think our guys have bought into that. And, there'll be a lot of different storylines, a lot of different things going on. And our biggest thing is let's stay committed to what's gotten us to this point and stay committed to the details and as players and coaches.
Saturday we'll see the two best running backs. What has allowed Wayne Gallman to ascend to that level of back?
Well, I'd say number one is his work ethic. Wayne takes a lot of pride in his job. He's really had to work at it because he did not play. He was not a one-back running back in high school. He was more of a wing back and a little bit different type of offense. So he's had to really learn and go through that process, and he's done the work. And then secondly, I'd say Tony Elliott's done an excellent job of coaching him and really teaching him. And, just to have a guy like Coach Elliott in that room with him every day for the last year and a half, you can just see Wayne's, game going to the next level. But he's just a violent runner. I know they do stats for everything. I'd be really interesting to see what the stats are as far as his yards after that initial contact. He's a guy that typically doesn't get tackled by the first guy there in the hole, and he makes a lot of things right. But really pleased where he is, and I think he's getting better each week, and I think he'll continue. I don't think he's reached his prime quite yet. I think he's still got more to go, and he would say the same thing.
Jeff, how much of the defenses today had to alter when they faced you guys, what they had previously sort of been doing coverage-wise and all that?
Yeah, to be honest, so far up to this point, we've seen about what we've expected. I think the reason is because we've shown that we've been able to run the ball successfully. I think, to be honest, I think the best thing that could have happened is really that we could develop our running game early in the season, and really got a lot of confidence in that. We knew that we were going to be able to throw the ball. It was just a matter of time before all that started to click. But I think, with Deshaun back there, his decision-making and in the different plays, having ability for him to run it, him to hand it off, or him to throw it, I think it creates issues, just like the other teams that run similar offenses that have similar type skill that we do, that you really have to play the whole field, and you have to be a little bit more vanilla because, you don't want to put yourself out there. If you sell out to stop the run, they can throw it over the top. If you sit back to play the pass, then they can run. So, what we see by just about everybody that we're playing, they're going to mix up their coverages and take their chances. But as a rule, everybody kind of, especially this late in the year, everybody kind of has their tendencies and what they want to do, just like we do on offense, and we have to study those and fight against those. But up to this point, I would say everybody's pretty much played with the same game plan going into the game, in the game that we thought going in.
You had 3 freshman wide receivers catch touchdowns Saturday. What does that say about this program, this offense, the young guys that come in and make an impact like that?
Yeah, one thing I thought was pretty interesting, and Coach Swinney brought it up the other day. The three wideouts, freshmen that caught touchdown passes, none of them played wide receiver in high school. You know, Hunter was a quarterback in high school, Dion was a quarterback, and Ray was a running back. So it's been pretty neat to see those guys. I think we have to remind ourselves as coaches on the recruiting trail not to get too caught up in just guys that play one position, because in high school you're going to put your best guys, you know, where they can touch the ball. But really pleased with them. You know, the one thing that we've been able to sell at the wide receiver position is that we're going to get the ball to our playmakers and that we're going to play a lot of guys. And I think that's a big, you know, some schools you look at and they've got a deep roster, but they play 4 wide receivers the whole game. And so the other 5 guys are sitting on the sidelines. And so it's pretty easy for us on the recruiting trail to show everything that we've accomplished in the passing game and receiving stats and all those type of things. And also to tell them, when you come here, all you have to do is get in the top 6 or top 7, and you're going to play 20 snaps every game as a freshman. And that's all they want is an opportunity. And so I think that, you know, we've been able to recruit at a high level, and I feel very confident, you know, with all of those guys going into play. I was really pleased with Dion and Ray to have an opportunity in a game like that to go finish some big plays, because they've been practicing really well. And, you know, they've had a few opportunities in a few games, and we've tried to get the ball to them. Sometimes the defense would kind of take the ball somewhere else. And so I think I was really pleased to see both of them make some nice plays. And then, you know, Hunter Renfro is just a rare guy, great story. And, you know, he's just special. He plays very low to the ground. When you watch him and making his cuts, he's able to put his foot in the ground and change directions and just do some stuff that not a lot of guys can do. And so I think he'll continue to be a factor for us along with the rest of the guys.
And you talked about in fall camp wanting to use 7 or 8 guys. And you hear coaches say that, but it's a lot harder to do than to say. How have you been able to promote that rotation?
Yeah, well, I think the biggest part is that those guys practice and prepare the right way. We're not just going to play 7 guys because, you know, it's going to help us with depth and all that. I mean, pretty much that entire game, the game was on the line. You feel like offensively, you know, that there wasn't a lot of situations where we can just go put our backups in, we're good. And so those guys had to be able to execute. I mean, the play that we threw to Dion, I mean, that was a key play in the game, you know, and I've got to be able to count whether that was Sharon Peak, Dion, or Trevion Thompson. I've got to be able to count that guy is ready to go, because that call is made so quick. You don't have times to make substitutions. Just like Ray's play. I mean, that was a big double move that we've been waiting on for a couple weeks. He's out there, we call it, and he goes and executes. So number one, we have to have trust in them, in their preparation and then in their practice. And then, you know, number 2 is I think we just have to be committed to playing guys. And early in the year, you're going to have a few mistakes that are going to come. But, you know, I love what it gives us in the fourth quarter. You know, those defensive backs, you know, I joke all the time and say most teams have 1.5 corners that they feel good about. You know, you just don't see them rolling corners in there. And so if we can roll our guys, you know, all of a sudden, you know, Dion's out there and it's play 20 for him, but for that corner it's play 68. That's a big difference when you're playing man coverage. All you need is a step. All you need is 1 yard to get ahead of the guy. And so it helps you there. And then also, you know, injuries are part of the game. Hopefully we've got a lot more games to play this year. There's going to be some injuries. And so I think when and if those injuries come, you know, it won't be a big cause of concern, because we've got a lot of guys that have been playing. And so that's kind of been our philosophy. And really at some of the other positions we've been able to do the same thing. Very rarely can you do that at offensive line. And this has been one of those years we've been able to do that at offensive line and keep up with very consistent play.
Is it one thing to have young guys? I mean, they can come into a game when you're up 40-0 late and make a play, but when the game's still on the line, like Dion and Ray were able to do, does that add a little more juice to what they're able to build on, I guess?
Yeah, it does. I mean, to be honest, I'm in between series. I have to get them all together and just kind of go, you know, pick out which 3 are in next, and I have to write it down on my board which 3 are in, because I really just roll those guys every series. And but I mean Ray and Dion are talented enough. If they had to be starters, they could go be a starter and play the whole game. And I think they're at a point now here where they know the offense and they can do that. And fortunately for us, we've got guys ahead of them that can execute and do that. You know, I look back at Artavis Scott starting, you know, a good bit of the year last year, you know, and you know, Ray is on the same track that Artavis was last year. It's just, you know, last year Artavis had more opportunities because maybe we didn't have as much depth in front of them as we do now. So, I mean, I think in our room we've got confidence really with all 7 of those guys, and it's the first time in my 6 or 7 years here where I've felt that way. And the good news is a lot of them are going to be back here for a couple of years.
Dabo said Artavis was a little sore. That's why he didn't do returns on Saturday. Do you feel confident he'll be a full go this week?
Yeah, he got banged up a little bit the week before, and so it was good for the other guys in practice. The other guys got some more reps, and then kind of the same thing that we're doing. You put a lot on Artavis when he's the starting kickoff return, starting punt returner, and then a big part of your offense. And so the same conversation we're having about the depth at the receiver position, we kind of wanted to develop some of our other returners as well, and use last week as an opportunity to do that in case something did happen with Artavis and all of a sudden you're in a huge game and you got to put a new punt returner and kickoff returner in the game. And so I thought that Hunter did a good job, and then Ray had a big spark there. That was big, opening kickoff after their score to get the ball out there to midfield. But yeah, Artavis is fine. He would have been fine to go full speed last week, and you know, and he played 35 plays on offense and felt really good afterwards. So I think he'll be fine.
Is it a leg issue?
I think it was more just kind of a bruise right underneath the hamstring, just kind of a deep bruise in there that was sore for him for a couple of days.
Jeff, obviously that Duke-Miami finish was a crazy one. I'm wondering, how do you guys as a staff check officials? Is there somebody who like breaks down the film and maybe there are, I don't know, 4 or 5 clearly blown calls that, you know, you'll run through Dabo and then forward to the league office or something?
Yeah, the ACC, I'm sure like every conference, has a protocol in place. So Sunday, if we see any calls that maybe we thought were incorrect or something that was not called that should be called, then we have a form that we fill out, and I think Coach McCorvey actually sends that into them, and they do a good job within a couple of days. They send us back their response and explanation and everything on that. But typically, part of that procedure is that we just keep everything in-house.
Yeah.
And but yeah, that happens every week.
And I mean, are there trends that you're seeing? Are you sending in maybe more than some other years, or is this
No.
all about the same?
It's all about the same, and I know that was an unfortunate circumstance and end of the game, which is really just kind of crazy. But in my opinion, you know, I feel like our officials do a really good job, and there's not a whole lot to complain about. You know, through the last few years, I really do think they do a good job. And, you know, occasionally you're going to have situations maybe like that, which was unfortunate.
All right, thank you,
All
Coach.
right.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thanks.